Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack. Sex work is said to be the oldest profession in the world. It is illegal in every jurisdiction in the United States except for the state of Nevada. But if sex work were legal, would it lead to safer conditions for its workers, or would it lead to an increase in sex trafficking? Well, let's get down to business. The business of being Black today is the oldest profession on the books or off the books. Please welcome the host of Keeping It 100 with Big 50, Big 50, the godmother. Hi, Big 50.
Hey, how are you?
Just fine. Co-host of the Guys Next Door podcast, Mouse Jones, will join us later. And then we have the founder of Love Never Fails, Vanessa Russell is here. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, how you doing?
Fine. Speaker and former scriptwriter Christopher Hudson, the Forerunner. Hi, Christopher.
Hey, how you doing?
Fantastic. The first question is, why should Black people care? This is the business of being Black. Why should Black people care if sex work is legal or illegal? Vanessa, let's kick things off with you.
Well, they should care. We should care because unfortunately, Black people are disproportionately human trafficked in our nation. In fact, 40% of trafficked individuals are Black, even though only 13% of our population of our nation are Black. And so that is a problem that we need to look at. And it's based in generational trauma. It's based in higher levels of poverty. It's based in lack of access to education and all of the markers for vulnerability, which are being preyed upon throughout our nation, throughout the world. And Black people, unfortunately, are at the center of that, and oftentimes the brunt of the abuse and of the, of the wants, the exploitative wants of many people in our world that just want to take advantage and get what they want off of a Black body, a Black woman, a Black person, unfortunately.
Well, you certainly came with some stacks and facts, some facts and stats, Vanessa. Christopher,
Yeah.
Why should Black people care about sex work and whether it's legal or not?
First and foremost, I refuse to use that appellation sex work for those that engage in prostitution. And the reason I refuse to use that nomenclature is because the very act of prostitution is inescapably, intrinsically involved in exploitation. And so when we use this title, sex worker, it's really just, in my estimation, it's just a vile attempt to invest with some type of dignity, a practice which, as you made mention of earlier, is agently steeped in corruption. And so I don't even want to address it as sex work. I want to address it as what it is, prostitution. And as was made mention of before by Vanessa, it's something that disproportionately is impacting minority communities such as our own, because it's actually preying on individuals that are in desperation and are marginalized. And so, yeah, that's definitely why we need to talk about it.
Big 50, why should Black people care?
Well, he said he don't want to call it, he don't call it what it is, it's prostitution. Well, in my world, I believe that when women go out with these men for whatever reason, if sex is involved, I believe that a woman should get something for it. And the reason why I say that, excuse me, is because they get a soul away free anyway. A lot of these women get their soul away for free. So I don't believe in giving up my soul away for free. I believe in women should get paid for it if that's what they're going to do. If you go, okay, prostitution, that's prostitution. It doesn't matter to me, however, what way they get their money. But I'm not going to go out with a man to give my soul away for free at all. I'm going to be compensated for it if I were a prostitute.
So why should Black people care if it's legal or illegal, Big 50?
Well, they should care if it's legal or illegal. It's because, we always stereotype why this should be legal, why that shouldn't be legal. they should really, I really believe they should care, is because a lot of times people care because it could be their daughter, it can be their granddaughter. So a lot of people will care or will not care. If it was my daughter, yes, I would care. I wouldn't want my daughter to come home from being out with a man and she look around and she talk about she's hungry. I would want her to do what she needs to do.
Oh my. Okay, that's quite a stance, I must say.
Yeah.
Are there some forms of sex work that are acceptable and others that are not acceptable? Would you say, Big 50? I'm gonna keep it on you.
You said are acceptable or not acceptable. So you call it sex work.
Well, that's a good. Okay. So let's talk about that then. As opposed to sex work, what should I call it? Should I take Christopher's suggestion and call it prostitution?
Okay, that's what we can call it, prostitution.
So
Because
what do you think it is that is creating this new term, sex work?
well, I think money involves with a lot of this prostitution thing. I mean, I always tell people like this. You can't fix what you can't see. A lot of them souls need a surgery. Okay. I just think
Vanessa,
I just think
50 says that it's about the souls, and a lot of women's souls are being sucked away while we're focusing on the money and the transaction. How do you
Yeah,
feel
and
about
that is exactly my point. That the souls are being sucked away, and I have a problem with that. And I have a problem with the fact that as Black women in our world, we are deduced to using our bodies to find sustainable income. I believe that we are intelligent, we are equipped, we are valuable, we are leaders, and we can go out and get this money and much more of it independently without being dependent on an exploiter or on a system of misogynistic, racist abuse, which the sex industry is historically known for. We can get out there and we can, we can be with whoever we want to be with, but we don't have to be subjected to someone who's smelly, somebody who's twice our age, 3 times our age, somebody who's choking us and beating us and slamming us down and wanting to put things in places that we don't want them to put it in there for some money. I don't need that kind of money. I can go make my money doing tech. I can make my money doing tech. I can make my money doing healthcare. I can make my money as an attorney. And here's the thing, I want every Black woman, including those that identify as sex workers, to know they are loved, they are valuable, they are powerful, and their souls can be restored and renewed. We do not have to sit in this mess that we've been subjected to for generations. I'm never gonna deduce us to that, unfortunately.
I don't believe that it's just the Black women. Kris Jenner prostituted her goddamn kids out. Prostitute Kim them. When Kim had that sex tape with Ray J, guess what? They said, we're not going to be embarrassed. We're going to get money off this. You're going to get paid. And guess what? She got paid ever since, and Chris been whoring them hoes around for a long time. So guess what? They just getting paid for theirs also. So I don't think it's just the Black women that's going.
I agree.
Look at Drake. Drake and the rest of those men went and screwed that whore over there in France somewhere, and she was a known prostitute. Lil Wayne and everybody screwed her, but when she came up pregnant, all of them ran around. Oh, it ain't mine. Don't say this. I got a girlfriend. Don't do this. But guess what? Drake got caught up because he didn't use protection either. Okay, so I don't just think it's just the Black women. So, everything's Black is wrong.
Well, this is indeed the business of being Black. Christopher, I want you to get in on this, because we were talking about sex work being actual real work. You say it's prostitution. Does it really matter what we call it? We all know what it is.
Yeah, it definitely matters what we call it, because words have meanings, and we utilize words to convey points. And the very reason why this whole title of sex work has been contrived is to once again invest this practice with dignity that it doesn't deserve, and also to legitimize something that I made mention of has just been anciently known to be a corrupt practice. And as Vanessa made mention of earlier, this is by no means to speak down on individuals that are engaging in prostitution at this time, because the great majority, the overwhelming majority of individuals that are engaged in prostitution have been either forced into it, coerced into it, or they find themselves engaging in it because of desperation. We don't want ourselves engaging in practices via desperation. I mean, there's some things obviously that we might do because we're desperate and we need to take care of business at home. So an individual might find themselves cleaning toilets or flipping burgers out of desperation, but there's still dignity found in flipping burgers. There's still dignity found in cleaning toilets. You know, there's something to be spoken of in a very high fashion when somebody is willing to go out and be industrious to try to take care of their situation. But now when you find yourself laying on your back trying to pay your bills, and as Big 50 has honestly stated, selling your soul for a piece of change, the long-term impact, not only on that individual, but on the community at large, is exponential. And so that's why, as Black people, if we want to address it from that position, people that are trying to pull themselves up, why would we continue to drag ourselves down by actually making an allowance for this type of practice to be acceptable within society? It's nonsensical.
I'm interested in the word dignity that you continue to talk about. You don't want to put dignity to the actual industry. And we're going to talk about that when we return, because I think Big 50 had a point with some people she mentioned in terms of prostitution. So let's talk about that when we return to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Foxsoul. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack. Today, the business of being Black is the oldest profession on or off the books. Please welcome the host of Keeping It 100 with Big 50, Big 50 the Godmother, the founder of Love Never Fails, Vanessa Russell, and speaker and former script writer, Christopher Hudson, the Forerunner. So I want to talk about words mattering here, Christopher. When we talk about giving dignity to the profession of prostitution, Martin Luther King Jr. said you should have dignity in everything you do. He said whether you're a street sweeper, whether you're whether you're the maintenance man. So what is wrong with putting dignity on this? And when we talk about the words being important, there are certain levels to prostitution. We consider escorts a little more fanciful than we do prostitution at a lower level, let's say. And then Big 50 talked about a few names where basically selling sex has created and given them a huge platform and basically springboarded them to more money than they could have ever made, possibly without those tapes. And we're referring to Kim Kardashian specifically. So I don't think she lacks dignity.
Well, dignity is basically by definition something that's worthy of honor. And just because something can be lucrative doesn't mean that it's honorable. There's a lot of practices that people can engage in that can be extremely lucrative. It doesn't mean that it's honorable. And even though society might praise it and laud it, once again, doesn't make it honorable. Because to be quite frank, our present day society has placed a premium on vice above virtue. And we can clearly see that 2022. They were opening bars, but they were closing down churches. So we put a premium on vice above virtue. And so I'll leave it right there. I think a few other people have something to say on that, but I'll leave it right there.
Yeah, if I could chime in and just say that it's not the individuals that lack the dignity, it's the industry. The industry is dishonoring to the survivor and to the woman, and to the soul that is present. It's disrespectful of the Black woman. It's not the person themselves that lacks dignity. They're valuable, they're loved, they're important. It is the fact that someone would subject a woman to doing something, or anybody to doing something that they don't want to do. And here's the way you know they don't want to do it, is you got to pay them for it. If I wanted to lay down with you and let you put this there, that, and there, and do this, that, and there to me, I would. You wouldn't have to pay me to do it. I do it because I wanted to. The fact that I have to do it because you coerced me into doing it, or you forced me into doing it, or because you preyed upon my vulnerability is despicable, and it's dishonoring, and it lacks dignity for the life that is in front. The soul, as Big 50 said, the soul that is represented there is not being cared for properly.
And just to chime in on that point.
Go ahead, Christopher.
Just to chime in on that point, the very fact that it's not dignified, unfortunately, because like was stated earlier, those that are engaging in these practices, they don't understand their value at times, or they find themselves in positions where they have to devaluize themselves, if you will, just so that they can try to get ahead. But these are dignified people. And just like it was stated a minute ago, many of the proponents for decriminalization of prostitution, they actually suggest that things like taxation be employed so that programs can even be set in place to educate females as to how they can get out of it, or how they cannot go into it in the first place. Well, if you want to get out of it and you shouldn't go into it, obviously this is not a dignified, honorable practice that people really want to engage in. They're preying on the desperation of individuals. It's exploitation. It's absolutely wrong. The Bible makes this statement, and I got to say it. It says, righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. It's disgraceful.
Big 50.
Well,
let's hear you keep it 100.
Well, again, with me, I have a couple friends. I'm not saying that I have this one person I see a couple people. I don't have a man, I just see a couple friends, okay? And seeing those couple friends, I'm not going out. I have bills to pay. So I'm not gonna date you and you don't do anything. Let's take it here. Okay, I'm not gonna date you and I know I got a mortgage, I know I got a car note. I'm just not gonna date and you don't do anything for me. I'm not saying, oh, every day you got to pay me, because I'm not going to see you every day, no way. But when I do see you and we go out, I expect something.
So are you equating prostitution to dating?
Well, yeah, you can date and still, it can be, let me tell you this. I'm getting ready to work on a reality show. I can't get much of it, but it's going to be professional women as yourself and others, that at night they becomes that lady of the night, because they may feel like their job is not paying enough and they know they want that quick cash right then and there. So this is what they do at night. They turn into the lady of the night or the prostitute, or however you want to put it. They turn into that lady of the night. They want that quick money.
Vanessa, you say that that prostitutes don't enjoy what they're doing because they have to get paid to do it. But
I enjoy it like him.
I'm sorry, say that again, Big 50.
I say shit, I enjoy it like him. I'm listen to it. Ain't for me, it's the money, it's not the pleasure. Okay, because half of these men ain't really,
Understood. Well, that's kind of where I was going with it, Vanessa. Yeah, how many of us have jobs that we don't like and we're just there because we're getting paid for it? Not the best, not the best example there.
Well, let me explain that a little bit better. When I come in, if I don't like a job, and I hope that there are some exceptions, but if I don't like a job flipping burgers, right? There was an example of flipping burgers. I don't enjoy that job. I don't enjoy being a retail clerk. It's a drag. I'm not getting choked out. I'm not getting beaten. I'm not coming away with, ripped organs, vaginal rips and tears, anal rips and tears. These kinds of things have major implications to your mental health if that was what you were subjected to on the job. That is what I mean. I don't mean just the average everyday, first world dislikes of your job. I'm talking about horrific violence that is happening in some instances. And I want to make sure that I'm clear on something, because there are various levels of being exploited. There are people that have been in this life and in this game for years. And as Big 50 mentioned, they have their go-tos. They have their book of business. They have their regulars. Those individuals are more stabilized. And I find that many times there's a lot of people being vocal in that space. But oftentimes those individuals are least involved with decriminalization because they ain't out on the street corner being talked to by the police. They're in the comforts of their homes, getting their mortgages paid and their car notes paid and everything else. And they're making these choices to have, have regulars because they know how to navigate in the life. But we talking about folks, I'm talking about these young folks. I'm talking about these vulnerable individuals that are being preyed on social media. Hey, you want to make a quick buck? Hey, come kick it with me. Let's get high. And then you find you getting gang raped and jumped into this life and then put out on the blade somewhere. And that is not an enjoyable thing. You're 15, you're 16, you're 21, you're 22. You haven't chosen that life. You're in the back of a car somewhere off of a blade somewhere in a dark city where you don't know who you're with. You're with somebody's grandpa. He smells like he hasn't taken a bath in a week, and you call that something that I chose? I didn't choose that. That is something that happened.
Big 50, the description that we're getting, the visual that we're getting from Vanessa, is this how it happens?
Well, she's talking about young girls on social media. Well, everybody before coming up to being a young adult or adult had this experience being a young girl. But I can agree, on social media, they may take it a little too far. And because social media, what it shows everybody right now, these kids love fast cars. They love the nice jewelry, and they want to be a part of that. So a lot of these young girls will jump in a car with some of these guys because what the car looked like and what they got around their neck and what they got on their wrist. So that's what these young girls jump into right now. I'm not talking about that part because some of them will end up in the ditch or gang rape. I'm talking about women that want that prostitute and want the money that want to get, compensated for even dating. Sometimes you don't even have to have sex. Sometimes you can just go out and date. A lot of these older men, they want to date you. They want to talk about what happened with them and their wife is not getting along. They want conversation. It don't always have to be sex. Some of these older men, they want conversation with women and they pay for that. Well, again, like she said, with the younger women, they may do things different. We know social media is different nowadays. So it's up to the parents to get hold of your children and restrict what they can watch, what they can't watch. Because everything is showed on social media, it's on the video, so they're gonna see it. It's up to you to tell your daughter or your son the do's and don'ts. And then if you do that, still, they're gonna make up their mind whether they wanna run away and do what they wanna do anyway. So I always grounded my children. My children didn't know anything I did. People in the street had to tell them. I put the fear in Jesus in their ass. They didn't do anything. I never had a problem. All of my children that went to school, I didn't have a problem with them skipping school or having fights in school or anything like that.
Let's take a quick break, Big 50. On that note, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack, and the business of being Black today is the oldest profession on the books or off the books. Please welcome the host of Keeping It 100 with Big 50, Big 50, the godmother, the co-host of Guys Next Door podcast, Mouse Jones has joined us. The founder of Love Never Fails, Vanessa Russell, and speaker and former scriptwriter, Christopher Hudson, the Forerunner. So before we went to commercial break, Big 50 said that, dating is equivalent to prostitution in the sense of when women go out on a date, they expect the man to pay. They want the man to pay for his gas to pick her up. They want the man to be in a nice car that's fanciful. They want the man to pay for the dinner. They want the man to bring them flowers. I hear girls say all the time, if he not getting no meal, or better yet, I hear men saying, if I'm paying for a meal that expensive, I expect to get some. That sounds like prostitution to me. Mouse, since you've joined us, your thoughts on that? Dating is equivalent to prostitution.
No, I think there's a false equivalency there. Because in the outlook of dating, we're looking for like equal part, right? You're looking for partnership, you're looking for security, right? There's some false equivalency there. I don't know if it benefits the conversation any to like delve deeper into that. I think when we're talking about legalizing sex work, at least from my point of view, it's about saving lives, saving Black lives specifically. Especially when we're talking about saving the lives of Black queer people. We got to decriminalize sex work, because that's the way a lot of these young Black queer kids are eating. Even cisgender Black people that are partaking in sex work. For me, it's always about saving the lives of those Black people and them not being forgotten. That's really the most important part for me.
This is interesting, Christopher, that Mouse brings that up, the safety of specifically the transgender community, because we've all learned, who are not a part of the transgender community, a little bit from the television show Pose, how disposed of the transgenders are when it comes to their family, and they're oftentimes left out on the street to seek for a family of their own, and the only means that they have, because they are tossed out at such an early age, the only means of survival they sometimes have is prostitution. Mouse says it's a safety matter here, Christopher.
Well, in reference to the way that transgenders are dealt with within society, I think, of course, we need to address how we deal with our neighbor, right? Because the Bible tells us we should love our neighbor as ourselves, no matter what their predisposition is or their choice thereof. But when you talk about it's just being a matter of saving lives, I believe that many of the statistics that have been gathered to observe this situation are really short-sighted in their scope of observation, because we're not taking into account the individuals that are suffering PTSD as a result of this. We're not taking into account the many people that are suffering all types of mental health issues, ultimately ending up in suicide, families that are broken up, and thereby actually destroying the very nucleus of the community and destroying the very fundamental foundation of society at large. So there are a whole lot of other factors that are not as easily quantified that are actually encouraged when you continue to try to even have a discussion on decriminalizing something that is just absolutely deplorable, and by no means should it be something that is dignified within society. And I continue to state that because repetition deepens impression.
In 2019, New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft was arrested for soliciting sex acts in Florida spas. Now, Martin County Sheriff Will Snyder told USA Today that those spas had all the trappings of sex trafficking. So can sex work lead to sex trafficking, Vanessa?
Well, absolutely. I think they're one and the same in most instances. I think there's an anomaly, a very small percentage of people who would say, I know a medical doctor who has chosen to be a quote unquote sex worker. And I say, well, you have an option. I think trafficking or if you want to characterize it as sex work is a choice of no choices, a choice of bad choices. I don't think people choose to do that if they have alternatives to pay for the things that they need. And I love what you talked about, Mouse, in terms of us wanting to protect LGBTQ plus community. Absolutely, there needs to be protections in place, and that's why I'm so so focused on getting sustainable, family sustaining jobs and skills to individuals so that they can provide for themselves. And they have the option. You know what? If you want to do voluntarily be exploited, fine. That's your choice. But until you have alternatives to trafficking, then it's just coercion and preying upon somebody's vulnerability to get what you want.
So, how would legalizing sex work impact sex trafficking? Like the scale effect of legalized prostitution leads to an expansion of the prostitution market, increasing human trafficking, maybe, while the substitution effect reduces demand for trafficked women as legal prostitution are favored over trafficked ones. So, how do we rectify this? How do we make this make sense, Mouse?
I mean, I think we would have to ask like somebody like Mariska Hargitay or Detective Stabler, somebody that question. I don't have that answer. I don't have the research to back that up. I'm not well versed in the criminal justice system. But what I do know is
I don't think Miss Hargitay is either. She just plays one on TV, right? But
I think what happens here is I think when we discuss sex work, I think we just like sometimes zoom in on unfairly, sometimes we zoom in on prostitution, right? Because there's multiple forms of sex work, like the big boom of what was that site called, OnlyFans, right? There was a lot of sex work going on OnlyFans, the porn industry in itself, the porn film industry, sex work. Strip clubs are classified as sex work. Like there is sex work that happens that is not, the ugly side of Hunts Point. You know what I mean? Like there's sex work that happens outside of that. I think what happens with decriminalizing sex work is you protect you give certain protections to the victims or to those who would otherwise be victimized, right? These people are being disrespected, killed, assaulted by criminals, right? Which would not happen if it was legalized because they would be under protections.
I'm
right.
I'm anti-sex work no matter what, guys.
That's just like getting a pimp and talk about under protection.
I'm anti-sex work no matter what definition you put to it. Pornography,
are you anti-sex?
You name it. I'm anti-sex work because licentiousness is destructive to society, period. And we can see
go to strip clubs.
And we can see that even the strip clubs that I used to go into back in the days.
So you used it. So now that
listen to me.
Hold on, Mouse.
That's like big 50. I'm going to be straight with it. You know what I mean? I'm going to be straight with it. I'm converted on that right now. I've seen the light. I see how it's destructive to females. Actually, at one point in time, I actually transported some females that were prostitutes, and I saw in their eyes that their souls were being ripped out. And I certainly wouldn't want to see that in the eyes of my daughter, the eyes of my sisters, or any other female within any community, Black or otherwise. The fact of the matter is, this type of practice is destructive. And unfortunately, our society has become accommodating to corrupt practices such as prostitution. Mouse made a statement, and we're talking about the fact that decriminalizing it will
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack, and the business of being Black is sex workers, legal or illegal. What should America do? Look, we just legalized marijuana. It's a lot of stuff we've legalized that has been illegal in this country. Is it progressive? Should we go ahead and legalize sex work as well? Now, Christopher, before we left to break, you were telling us about how you were redeemed from your stripper days.
Redeemed from a lot of things, but as I was trying to state earlier, the very argument that the most logical approach to relieve the pressure that's on the criminal justice system as a result of arrests that are due to prostitution is to decriminalize it. It's absolutely absurd and irrational, because if that be the case, then we can relieve the stress that's been placed on the criminal justice system by pedophilia, by simply lowering the age of consent to 9, like they do in the Maldives. You're 9 years old, you can be a consensual adult, if you will, in the Maldives. And there it is, pedophilia is right out the window. It's not answering the problem.
Well, I do believe Georgia has just lowered the age that you can be married in the state just recently. So you can be a minor and get married, I believe, in the state of Georgia now. Vanessa, you wanted to chime in? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, actually, child marriage is legal in multiple states across our nation. And just in California recently, a law was passed that allows for 14-year-olds to consent to sex as long as the person who they're having sex with is within 10 years of their age. that was passed last August of 2021. So even though these laws are passing, it doesn't make it right. And it doesn't mean that the person, the child has the brain development, right, to be able to consent to some of these things. And we heard it earlier when we talk. We've got to personalize this. We have to stop thinking about this just as something out there. If it's not good enough for your child, if it's not good enough for your niece or your nephew to go do it, then it's not good enough. It's not the right thing for them. And if we recognize the fragility of our own children, and we recognize that they can't even figure out which tennis shoes they want, what they want for breakfast, but they're going to be going ahead and opting into being trafficked, or saying that they consent to these kinds of things, they just don't have the mental faculties to do that. And what I wanted to say earlier was about OnlyFans, because it came up earlier as a different version of trafficking. And I want to say just 2 weeks ago, I was involved with a case where an 8-year-old Black child was murdered by her mother and her mother's pimp. They were involved in BDSM, and they were doing videos on OnlyFans. And I want to tell you that woman, that mother, was being so brutalized, beaten, treated horribly. And it was with the baby in the other room. And they ended up molesting that child, beating that child, starving that child, and ultimately killing that child. This is why decriminalization and not having a watch guard over not only the exploited woman, but her child and the community, it will further drive our families, our Black families, our Black women, our Black people into the grave.
Vanessa, you've given us some exceptional stories when it comes to prostitution, but they seem to be just that, exceptions. So I want to know, Big 50, is this the everyday lifestyle of a prostitute? Are they brutalizing their infant child in the process of prostitution? Are they continually getting beaten and raped and pounded to where their vaginas are being shredded apart?
We hear this thing all the time about rape and the community, and they always say the Black community, whatever. But OnlyFans really popped off is when the pandemic came. The young girls figured they were strippers. The young girls figured they couldn't make the money because the bars was closed down. So they went to OnlyFans. So I can't just say, oh, this woman, that one person was on OnlyFans and her daughter got beaten and she got brutally beaten. That site was used for the strippers. When they couldn't make money in the clubs, they went to OnlyFans to make the money. Hell, shit, I seen how much money these girls was making. I wanted to go to OnlyFans. And it just wasn't. They wasn't doing nothing but stripping. Some of them was showing off their feet. Some was showing off their teeth and getting paid. These men just like to pay any way they can. So I'm not just going to say OnlyFans started the brutally beating. These women and these young men, this has been going since the hands of time. Some children been beaten or trafficking. It doesn't just start with OnlyFans. Okay.
So, I want to mention this. What disturbs me most, I think, about prostitution is that it seems that it's the prostitute, which is typically a woman, although we know that there is male prostitution as well. It seems like the prostitute is the one that always gets into the trouble, but not necessarily the John.
Well, of course, because you could be redeemed, like good brother Chris. You know, the John can be redeemed, and then he goes on to live a great life, and then he lives a life where he gets to demean and tell women how soulless they are for, you know, enacting their agency over their body and their sexual liberties. And then he gets to, and the woman just has to live with that, right? And specifically our Black women. I think that's part of my friend. I think that's bullshit. Everything I've heard.
A lot of times these men, these women don't
hold that thought, Big 50. Complete your thought now.
I'm gonna tell you why, because
I will let you, Christopher.
For the simple fact that he could say, oh, you know, I'm redeemed from my strip club days. Yeah, right. So you utilized these women in their bodies, in their sexual agency for what you needed it for. And then you walked on and said, now I'm redeemed. I've seen the light. And you're wrong. You're terrible. You're actually terrible. The thing about this is you cannot remove, and we're going to get into trouble every single time we do this. We cannot remove women's civil liberties and sexual agency, right?
Let me let Christopher get in on this real quick, Miles.
Yeah. First of all, first things first, I was never a John. I did go to the gentleman's club before. Secondly, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination categorizing individuals that engage in prostitution as soulless, as being despicable individuals. I truly see individuals no, that's not what I'm categorizing them as. And you came late. That's on you, not on me. But the fact of the matter is, individuals that are engaging in prostitution, in many cases, are being either forced into it, they're coerced into it, or they're finding themselves engaging in prostitution because of they find themselves in a situation of desperation. And so I really do, in a very real sense, have pity on them. And I would like to see good come to these individuals that are engaged in this, because they're bright individuals. Many times they just don't have the opportunities to do other things that would bring them to a position of prominence within society, which they have the ability to attain to, but they just don't have the opportunities presented to them. And so, yeah, I've opened my eyes because I saw the darkness and I realized it's not the direction. And other individuals, unfortunately, are finding themselves being manipulated by men, because listen, prostitution, it really helps to perpetuate a very toxic patriarch society. I mean, a toxic form of patriarchy. Okay, and that's not something that's empowering to women by any stretch of the imagination. And so we want to empower women. We want them to stand on a level of equality with men within society. Prostitution is not providing.
Yeah, it's a different kind of prostitution. Now, I don't condone them human trafficking these young children, but it's a different kind of prostitution. Back in the 60s and 70s, prostitution.
Oh, that thought before we take a journey back to the past. Let's take a journey to the future in these commercials. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. The business of being Black today is sex workers. Should it be legalized? Advocates for legalization, much like Mouse here has said, say that many sex workers don't report incidents of violence because they don't want to get in trouble with law enforcement. And he says that if we legalize it, it would definitely pull back on some of the violence, and it would also pull back on some of the stigma that comes along with it. Vanessa?
Yeah, so I actually am a proponent of changing the way that we respond to victims being exploited or are being out there. So I think that we need to provide exit strategies for those individuals. So, but we at the same time not provide immunity. What decriminalization would do would provide immunity for buyers and exploiters. And we cannot have that, because that's going to increase demand of Black bodies. And so what we need is an exit strategy, and I mean funded. It's not good. I'm so tired of people talking out of both sides of their neck, saying that they're proponents of Black lives and of Black women and of brown women, and they don't come with no money to house them, and no money to put them in workforce development programs, and no money for mental health services. And so we've designed a bill. It's called Pathways to Safety, and it does just that. And it also provides education for buyers and exploiters, diversion programs, which they have to pay for, because they need to take responsibility for their behaviors. And for me, it's a pathway to safety, exit strategies, not put them in a jail. That ain't going to help victims.
Miles, will this exit strategy that Vanessa is talking about work if brothels and sex workers were legitimized, licensed, and medically inspected? Would prostitution be eliminated?
No, the art of selling sex is the oldest export, is the oldest thing in the book. Like, it's not going to do it. I think exit strategies for those who have been forced into it and those who have found their way into it through lost means, I think that would help them. I think that would help them a lot. I'm just not one to jump out there and just say the majority of people in sex work are forced into sex work, right? We don't know that. We don't have that number, right? And we're basing that on our knowledge and our acceptance of what is right in societal eyes. So I do agree with Ms. Vanessa that we do need that for those who have been forced into it, those who are being rescued and pull from trafficking rings and just, pimps taking advantage of them. But there are also women.
Listen, Big 50 was talking about OnlyFans, and I can't lie, I've been on OnlyFans a couple of times, and it don't look like nobody forced to do nothing. I see couples together creating income with their sex work. Big 50,
Right.
is sex work an art form?
Well, I believe sex work, it can be art form. I watched the girls for many years on a strip pole, and I'm sitting there gazing like, wow, I wish I could do that trick. I wish I could pull up on this pole. So I think, yeah, it could be a form of art. I mean, when they paint pictures of nudity, that was a form of art. They always say, don't look at this as being you're nude. Look at this as a form of art. So look at it as a form of art. Back in the day, the young ladies back in the day had pimps. They don't have to have pimps anymore.
Yeah,
that's why
I think the pimp industry has suffered the most with this.
Yeah, the pimps say it's no more.
Yeah. Tell us about Godmother's Touch, please. Tell us about Godmother's Touch.
Well, the Godmother's Touch is a something I come up with foundation for young women, for at-risk teens, prison reform, also the LGBTQ, because a lot of times they exit those people out. Okay, they're human just like we're human, and everybody keeps saying, "Oh, for the blacks, for it should be all women, just not for black women. It should be for all women." What Miss I can't Vanessa was speaking on. She said something about the black women. They should do this or they should get this or whatever. I just think it should be for all women. I don't think it should be specifically just for black women.
And I think she's being specific because those are there are certain spots in our community that get focused on less, and so you try to come in and fill that gap. Much like transgender. Christopher, tell us about the podcast you're launching, the Forerunner Chronicles.
Right, so Forerunner Chronicles is media that I'm engaged in: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all of those. And primarily I'm dealing with social issues and current events as they relate to the Bible and Bible prophecy. And Forerunner Chronicles is heavily invested in doing humanitarian efforts as well. Like right now, we have a school that we built in Zimbabwe, Africa, in Gokwe. Right, we have 190 children in attendance there. We've actually broken ground in Ghana to set up an orphanage over there for underprivileged and disenfranchised children. And of course, we're trying to set up centers of influence here in the United States as well. So check us out on Forerunner Chronicles, The Forerunner, FORERUNNER 777. You can find that on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube.
Vanessa, you've told us a little bit about your organization, but Love Never Fails. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so we provide housing for survivors of human trafficking and their children. We have houses for youth that are ages 13 to 17 for men and their families. And now we're getting ready to open up a foster care AB 12 transitional age youth home for 18 to 24-year-olds in July. And so we are all about that life. And we're also a cybersecurity pre-apprenticeship program. So we're about getting survivors jobs in IT. We are not just about housing, not just about, rescuing. We're about getting people operating in their best life. And I don't care whether they're Black, white, Latino, Asian. I don't care if they're LGBTQ plus. I don't care who they are. They deserve an opportunity to know that they're loved, they're valuable, and there's a lot to them, and they can make money doing what they love, doing what they're purposed to do.
Mouse, tell us about the Guys Next Door podcast. Is that a takeoff of the Girls Next Door, the Playboy Mansion?
No, we just
reality show that existed at one time.
No, we just happen to be in the same neighborhood. No, it's a podcast with myself, Mac Wilds, and Ryan Fletcher. It's just three young Black millennial men. We started the podcast when we were entering our 30th year of life 3 years ago. And just chronicling, our dating lives, relationships, unlearning a lot of the toxic masculinity and patriarchal rules that, that sometimes weighs down on the Black community, and just having a good time, having a good time, and just 3 Black men, trying to figure it out and learning.
So this is going to be a hard question because the answer has to be very quick here. But I want to know, what can we do about prostitution that would make everyone happy in 3 words? What can we do?
Like, legalize it.
Legalize it. Okay.
Legalize it now. You said 3 words, legalize it now.
Vanessa, what you got for us?
Exit strategies.
Exit strategy.
Exit strategies. No legalization. No decriminalization.
Christopher, you've had quite a bit of time to think about it, as our other 3 panelists has given us their 3 words. So you get the last word, Christopher. What should we do about prostitution?
Yeah, and love, do what we can to help people out. Do what we can to help those that we see closest to us out. Follow the law of Christ. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Love your neighbor.
That's it.
Okay, I think we can roll with that one, the love your neighbor part. Mouse, thank you so much for joining us. Vanessa, it's been a pleasure. Big 50, thank you for bringing your story to the show. And Christopher, we really appreciate your honesty on the show, my brother, without a doubt. TGIF is next. Who is that? That is Claudia Jordan and her gang. Until next time, everybody, it's a blessing to be in your box on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Foxsoul. Until next time, bye, y'all.